All right, good morning, everyone, or I guess good afternoon, everyone. This is Keith Selman from the National Weather Service, Peachtree City, for your final briefing from our office on Hurricane Ian. This is our fifth and final. So, overview, Ian has re-intensified over the Gulf Stream into a hurricane. It's more of a hybrid type system, half tropical, half what we call extratropical. It has begun the transition into what we call extratropical, but it is a hurricane nonetheless, 85 mile an hour, and is continuing north. It actually is a little further east even than even the previous forecast, and is now expected to go in somewhere near Myrtle Beach or so, maybe just west of Myrtle Beach. And confidence is pretty high in this forecast, at least through the remainder of it, at least. For north and central Georgia, we will see gusty and some occasionally strong winds through this evening. We do have a wind advisory in effect for areas generally east of I-75. It's actually about one or two counties east of I-75 and then all the way to the state line. There are tropical storm warnings in Georgia for the Georgia counties that are covered by Columbia and Charleston. They are continuing to do briefings, so if you are in the area in and around the tropical storm warnings, you may want to tune in to either Columbia or Charleston's briefings that they may be continuing through the day. The flood threat has essentially abated and is no longer a threat for at least our area because of the continued eastward shift in the track and such that our rainfall amounts are literally almost nil to very little at this point, and I'll cover that in a minute. So here's the brief overview of everything that's in effect. The area in brown is the wind advisory. The area in red is the tropical storm warnings. Wind gusts up to 40 mile per hour possible, generally in both areas. To be honest, it is we're running 20 to 30 and 30 to 40. 20 to 30 for areas west of the wind advisory, 30 to 40 in the wind advisory area. And then obviously they're running up to about 40 in the tropical storm. The impacts from that, we may see a few scattered power outages due to downed trees, but primarily in the wind advisory area and the tropical storm warning areas through the remainder of today. And again, that wind advisory is in effect until 8 p.m. and then it expires, and we do not plan to reissue unless something really strange happens at that point. So past 24 hours, here are the max wind speeds through 11 a.m. That we've observed in the last 24 hours from the observing platforms we have. Most of the peak winds in the I-75 corridor occurred yesterday. We are still getting some near 30s down in Macon today. And I know the 40 in Athens was yesterday, but Athens is still gusting up over 30. In most of the area in eastern Georgia is running anywhere from about 28 to about 35 currently. So those are the peak winds we've observed. And after I captured this map, Charleston, I saw down on the coast, Charleston gusted to 60. So the winds are actually increasing in South Carolina and in North Carolina as the storm is coming up to the coast. And so the numbers over in South Carolina will continue to increase. So the details and the latest on Ian, the pressure, minimum central pressure is down to 980. It's actually, the pressure has been lowering as it's approached the coast. You can see it on the graphic on the right. And the track obviously takes it up into South Carolina and then North Carolina and continues north and away from our area. It is moving north at 14. I threw this graphic on the left just so you could see what we were talking about 2 days ago. The storm is moving north into an area of higher pressure, and as it does so, that pressure gradient begins to tighten. We were, with the track further to the west days ago, we were expecting that gradient that's highlighted to be over us. It is now instead over South Carolina and North Carolina, and thus the packing of the pressure lines is much less for Georgia. The result is lower wind speeds and lower wind gusts for us. So good news, we escaped. Not by much, but we escaped with the further eastward track of Ian. So wind impacts, this is probably the last and final graphic we'll put out on maximum wind gust. And this did start this morning. Some of those higher winds down on the coast and in southeast Georgia would have been this morning through about now, as far as the forecast. The further north you go, the more relevant it becomes with this afternoon. So the area north of I-20, 30 to 40 is still valid in the wind advisory area, and 20 to 30 again in the area in green that you see all the way to the state line, off and on gusts through the day. Things should really start to wind down after sunset or near sunset. And again, the impact concern there is sporadic power outages due to downed trees. Little or no rain forecast with any of this, so saturated soils, etc. The thing we were talking about the other day is obviously not a concern. In fact, it's becoming less and less likely that we see any rainfall from this, with the storm shifting further east. And if you look at the current trends on radar, the back edge of the precip is literally at the state line, or very close to it. So the amounts that we have highlighted back to Atlanta, eastward to about Athens, that may be actually a little high. We may not see any rain at all. But the trends have been to push the heavier rain east due to a continued slight eastward shift in the track. The spotty showers and light rain that was possible tonight into early tomorrow is becoming less and less likely. Still can't rule it out, and there is a low-end chance, but it's becoming less and less likely. And anything really that we could see is up to maybe an inch east of Gainesville to Edenton to Dublin. But again, even that is becoming less and less. The flood risk as a result is literally almost zero at this point for our area, and maybe slightly once you get over on the state line near the river, maybe Augusta down to Savannah, at least from rainfall flood risk. And so that was the last slide, and this is the last briefing on Ian. So at this point, let me go back to the wind. Somebody's asking for the wind. There's the wind slide. Wind shows 40. Is that still reasonable? So wind shows 40 to 50 for Jefferson, probably on the high end. If you hadn't had it already, the storm is moving in east of Charleston. If it's not happening now or hasn't happened in the last few hours, then no, the numbers are probably a tad high for North Jefferson. It's probably more in the 30 to 35 range based on what we're seeing now and the trends with the storm moving away. Again, this was the forecast from this morning. Yep. Thanks, Annie. Yeah, low 30s makes sense based on what we're seeing and the trend. So that's probably all you're going to get. Any other questions?